Hello friends and potential friends. Well, I decided I better get busy and get some sweet potato slips growing. I know I've shown this a lot of times, but I think it's well worth repeating from time to time because there are a lot of misconceptions out there about growing sweet potato slips. Now, when I first started growing my own slips, I did it the way a lot of people do. I took my sweet potatoes and poked toothpicks in them, propped them up in a jar of water, and then waited for them to start growing slips. And then once the slips got to be a good size, I would break them off with the seed potatoes and put them in another jar of water and wait for them to grow roots. And that works. But you have to be pretty diligent, because if you're not real careful, once in a while you might wind up with a rotten sweet potato in that jar of water. And that's not fun. So that happened to me one time, and I decided there has to be a better way. So I started putting the seed potatoes into soil, and I would bury them halfway into the soil so that the top half was sticking out of the soil. And that did work. I still got slips. Then I'd take the slips and I would put them in a jar of water and wait for them to start growing roots before I could plant them. So finally, I saw somebody that was growing their slips by burying the sweet potatoes completely under the soil. So I gave that a try. Incidentally, I'm getting a little bit of a head start. These are the sweet potatoes that I harvested last September. I decided to try burying the seed potatoes completely in the soil, completely under the soil. And then I waited for them to grow slips. And I found that when the slips got to be a good size, I could break them off of the seed potatoes without disturbing the seed potatoes too much. And in a lot of cases, the slips already had roots. So I didn't have to put them in a jar of water and wait for them to develop roots. And basically, that's the way I've been doing them ever since. Now, one thing that worries me a little bit is these guys. Those are roly-polies. And I used to think that they were just cute, harmless little things. And then one time when I was digging up my final sweet potato harvest, I came across one potato that had holes drilled into it. Looked kind of like this, and inside those holes were roly-polies. They were under the soil. They were eating my sweet potatoes. And ever since then, whenever I see them, I try to get rid of them, because they are not harmless little friends in the garden. So anyway, ever since that one time, when I go to start my sweet potato slips, I bury them completely into the soil. I'll just loosen this up a little bit so it's easier to work with, because this has been sitting here since September. And you may also notice that Obviously, when I harvested my sweet potatoes last September, I didn't get them all, because these guys have popped up just in the last 2-3 weeks. And that's what made me realize it's time for me to get some slips in the ground. Now this is, I think it's the 19th of March. It's actually the first day of spring. And under normal circumstances, I'd be pretty late in starting my slips. But my plan is I'm going to get these slips growing. It'll take roughly 1 to 2 months before they're ready to plant. And then that means I'll be getting them into the soil about, somewhere in June. And I'll be harvesting in September. We have a long growing season down here, and that does give me plenty of time to get sweet potatoes. As you can see from the batch here, and this is what's left over. I've eaten a lot of them. They take about 120 days from the time you plant the slips until the time you can harvest your sweet potatoes. So counting back from September, or from, counting back from September, that means as long as I get them in the ground by the end of June, I could still harvest the end of September, and then I can have sweet potatoes for Thanksgiving. So I'm just trying to pick out the ones that have already got a little bit of growth on them, and a few of the extras. And this one here, even though it's got a little bit of bug damage, and it's actually starting to grow a slip right here, I think that one's going to become supper tonight. And I'll just plant a bunch of the rest of these. And then, like everything else, I'll water them in a little bit, and I'll wait for them to start popping up and looking like this. Once they get to be about 6 to 8 inches long, this one's almost the right size. Once they get to be about 6 to 8 inches long, I'll pull them off of the seed potatoes, and I'll plant them in that round bed over there that currently is occupied by radishes that are about done. And then, if all goes well, when I come back from my mom's this summer, it'll be about time for me to dig sweet potatoes. Put some of this mulch back on here, because you never really want the soil to be exposed. Who is it? Somebody, I'm not sure who I first heard it from, but basically, Mother Nature is shy. She wants to be covered up. So, if we help her to stay covered up, maybe she'll work with us instead of against us. And that's it. over the next month or so, I should see more slips start popping up. And hopefully the roly-polies won't eat them this time. This one doesn't want to be a video star. But yeah, that's a roly-poly. And they are cute, but they certainly are not harmless. And that's how I grow my sweet potato slips. I've been doing it this way now for a few years, and it works well for me. And it also provides slips for me a lot faster than if I have to put them in a jar of water and wait for them to grow roots. So give it a try if you've never tried it this way, and I think you might be pleasantly surprised. And meanwhile, I'll see you next time.